is the Sarasota Technology User Group for January 4th, 2023. I'm Huey Poplock. I'll be your host to get us started today with some announcements. And today we're going to have the history of computers presented by Caspers Jones. He's online, so we know we're going to have our presentation here very shortly. Let me move this out of the way. And we'll have a drawing at the end of the meeting for a one-year membership renewal. So if you're a member, you can win. If you're not a member, you can't win a renewal. So you must be a STUG member and you must be online when we do the drawing. And that's usually right at the end of the meeting. If you're not a member and want to join, the individual or family membership is $30 a year. And you can go to our website and get a membership and sign up for a membership there. We have classes and forums. Some of the classes are limited to current STUG members only, but some are open to all of you. This month, the iPhone, iPad classes will be for the entire month, every Saturday. Bill Crow hosts it. There's the topics. You do need to get in touch with Bill, send him an email, and he will send you back a link for either each meeting or for the 4 meetings. I'm not sure how he does that. I do a Windows special interest group. It's a combination of the STUG and the Central Florida Computer Society. It's this Sunday. You need to be registered, but you do not have to be a member of either group. And if you go to huey.net, you can sign up for the newsletter. I'll see that you signed up, or you can send me an email at huey@huey.net, and I will make sure that get you the link to sign up to be able to sign in to the meeting. On Wednesday, the 23rd of January, Marcia Berkey is having a beginning Excel Google Sheets spreadsheets session, and just focusing on uses for spreadsheets, laying out your data and some other beginning ideas about it. So don't be scared. The spreadsheet does it for you. This class is for everyone and no prior knowledge is needed. Get a hold of Marcia via email and she will send you a link to the meeting. I am going to attempt something new this month. I had to change the date, so please be aware it's going to be the third Tuesday, which is the 24th. It may even be the fourth Tuesday. I'm not sure. But anyway, it's January 24th at 2:30 for an hour. It's going to be an hour-long meeting, including 2 or 3 short videos. And then we're going to discuss the topic. You may have some questions. You may have some things you want to add to it, some experiences and so on. This month, we're going to talk about fishing, music, and radio from around the world with a website. And then funny signs, using a couple of different websites to keep your humor active. The first session, as I said, will be the 24th, and you do need to get a hold of me so I can send you the link to the session, and it will be for members only, and it will not be recorded. And the reason it's not going to be recorded is I'm going to be playing things and doing things that YouTube doesn't like us to put up on the website, and that is because they're copywritten material. The STUG Help Desk is the third Wednesday of every month. It's going to be January 18th from 4 to 5:15 p.m. And you need to get a hold of Jim Cerny or sign up at the link. And that's always a good meeting. A lot of Q&A, a lot of help for on almost any topic. The Tech for Seniors, hosted by myself and Ron Brown, is every Monday. Tech for Senior Live is every Thursday, tomorrow morning. And Learning Chromebooks is the 4th Thursday of every month. Then don't forget the STUG website, the STUG newsletter, the STUG YouTube channel. Please subscribe and do like our videos when you watch them. And the STUG Facebook page. And we do have a stugsgroup.io. And if you subscribe by typing in that address, you can ask questions there and people do answer them. And then don't forget the Friday STUG trending email. is sent to all current members every Friday. Also, we have on the website, if you go to that little yellow block you see on the left bottom, when you click on that, it brings up the calendar and you can see all of the events that STUG is having for each month. Here's all of our members of the board of directors. And I'll turn it over to Ann to introduce our speaker.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Huey. I appreciate that. I do hope we see that Caspers Jones is here.
Yes, he is.
All right. That's good to know. Well, I am about to introduce him, but this is the History of Computers by Caspers Jones. How did we get from counting on our fingers to billions of editions a second on one of our phones? Tonight, our presenter, Caspers Jones, will address the evolution of computers and how that evolution led the way for so many other technological advances. Caspers Jones has a long history with involvement in software engineering of research, management, patents, and inventions. Most recently, he co-founded a company called Namcook Analytics with offices in Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and Sarasota, Florida. He is Namcook's vice president and CTO, and Caspers is that chief technology officer? I'm not sure. I'm not sure he hears me. And anyway, I think that's what it is. Before Namcook, Caspers held software engineering research and management positions at IBM's software labs in Boulder, Colorado, and San Jose, California. Before IBM, he was assistant director of software engineering at ITT's Programming Technology Center in Stratford, Connecticut. This man gets around. Caspers has authored 17 books on computer science, several history books, and over 60 magazine articles. But he is here tonight to tell us more about computer analytics, or the history of computers. So let's give a big STUG welcome to Caspers Jones. Caspers?
Computer from the 1700s. Let's advance a little bit to the next picture because there's some text mixed in with this too. This is not a PowerPoint talk. This is the first the first computer was built of stone as an astronomical observatory, roughly 3500 BCE. You can see how the things are aligned and how they point, although you can't see it now, towards various things in the sky. So it's interesting that people have been interested in using calculation with artificial devices like stone and wood and metal things for thousands of years. Go on to the next one. This is an abacus invented in China and Japan and still in current use. And this was the first really effective mechanical computing device. It was developed maybe 2,000 years ago in China. I still have one. You probably have some too, just as a souvenir. Okay, next. This is called the Antikythera mechanism. This was a very sophisticated mechanical computer built in Greece, maybe 1000 BCE. Some of you may have seen pictures of it. Have anybody seen the Antikythera mechanism before? Could go to the next one, which shows what it actually looks like. This is the original thing as it was brought up from the bottom of the ocean. The next one will show what it looks like. Next screen, please. Can you go to the next? This is what this Antikythera thing looked like. This was the face of it for doing numerical calculations. Very sophisticated for 1000 BCE, I think. It had all kinds of complicated gears and mechanisms inside. Next one, please. This was one of the first large libraries. This was the Library of Alexandria in Greece. And they had a big section of books on mathematics and mathematical texts. And that was from 400 or 500 BCE. Next screen, please. This is the Library of Constantinople. This was the last major Roman library. They also had thousands of books on computers and mathematics. Next one, please. This Have any of you heard about the University of Nalanda in northern India? This was one of the most sophisticated universities in the world from about 500 BCE. They taught mathematics, they taught physics, they taught science. They had an astronomical observatory. They taught foreign languages. And it was really an amazing place. I suggest if you're interested in the history of computers and science, do a Google search on Nalanda University. That's still preserved today by the Indian government as a historical place. Very sophisticated. Okay, next one, please. This is from South America. This shows some of the ways the Mayans and the Incans and the Toltecs calculated. You can see over on the right, those strings with knots in them. They tied knots and used them for mathematical calculations. And that happened at about the same time that the University of Nalanda was built, 500 or 600 BCE. Next screen, please. This one, I forgot what it is. Oh, this is the Mayans. This is the Mayan, basically a university, kind of a place where they got together to study things. If anybody's been to South America, some of the Mayan and Incan ruins are really spectacular. Next screen, please. It's amazing that they studied math and science. Oh, this was one of the first mechanical computing devices. This was, forgotten the year, but probably around the 1700s. Okay, next one, please. Napier was the one who invented this. This was the first mechanical computer. I believe it was Charles Babbage. Yeah, it's interesting. I have another history book on the history of publishing. The first book ever written was written by a woman in 3200 BCE. The first novel was written in Japan by a woman named Murasaki Shikibu in 1150. And the world's first computer programmer was Countess Ada Lovelace, who was the daughter or niece of Lord Byron, the poet. And she programmed Babbage's mechanical computer in about 1844. Next screen, please.
Wow.
This is Countess Ada Lovelace. And if you're interested in the accomplishments of women, Ada Lovelace was right up there. Another interesting one was Dr. Mary Walker, who was the first woman to win a Congressional Medal of Honor. And then there was a Japanese lady from the 1200s called Tomoe Gozen, who she was a samurai and defeated 22 male samurai in the 1200s. But in any case, getting back to computers, that was Countess Ada Lovelace, who was the world's first computer programmer. Okay, next, please. This is the first electronic computer built around 1939, the Atanasoff Berry computer. And I've forgotten where it was built. Built in 1939, though. I think it was in England.
1984.
Okay, next picture, please. When I was in college, we all used slide rules. I'm in my 80s, so I was alive before computers even came about, and we all used slide rules for mathematical calculations. Probably some of you are my age and you had slide rules too. I still own a slide rule, although I don't use it anymore. But it's nice to have as a memento. So this is how we did calculations before computers came out, or before calculators. Next screen, please. This was an early Hewlett-Packard electronic computer. I still have some of those, and probably you do too. They made math a lot simpler than slide rules and hand calculations. Okay, next one. This was the Cambridge University offered the first degree in computer science in 1953. Purdue was the first American school to have a computer science. When I went to the University of Florida, they had no computer science courses. In fact, I was an English major. I didn't get into computers until 2 years after I graduated. I was working as a magazine editor on a medical journal and had to learn programming to convert medical records from text to computers. So they sent me to IBM to learn programming, and I liked it better than editing, so I joined IBM and went on from there. Switched over to IBM. But in any case, this was the first computer science degree in the world, and Purdue was the first in America. Next one, please. Okay, some of you have seen this, or maybe you've actually worked in things like this. I did in the early 60s. These are how calculations were done, mostly by women mathematicians. This is the space agency. This is a picture from the 50s when they were doing calculations for aircraft and missile tracking using electromechanical computers rather than actual calculators rather than computers. And for some reason, I think because salaries were lower for women than for men, women tended to do the bulk of the computer work, calculating work in the 50s. Next one, please. This was President Obama giving an award to one of the calculators. They were called computers, by the way. The women were called computers, and that's really where our name came from. Yeah, this is the Medal of Freedom for one of the mathematicians. Next one, please. There was a good movie made called Hidden Figures that was the lives of some of these mathematicians back in the 50s. By the way, there's a source of free movies called Internet Archive. And if you want to see old movies like Hidden Figures, you key in on your computer, Hidden Figures on Internet Archive, or Casablanca on Internet Archive, and you can watch thousands of old movies for free if you want to see them. So take a look at Hidden Figures if you want to see what life was like for women mathematicians in the 50s. Okay, next one, please. Oh, my wife has cochlear implants. And cochlear implants were one of the first computer devices that actually changed the quality of life for deaf people by having a small embedded, by using a computer and a small embedded device that's actually inside the head that replaces the electrodes. She's able to hear better than I can. Right now, she's producing a movie called Rally Caps with Judd Hirsch and Amy Smart, which is based on a true story of a young boy who went deaf and got cochlear implants. And it just won an award at the Heartland Film Festival in Indiana. And it's going to be showing in Florida at the Palm Beach Film Festival in Florida. It's not out yet, but it's probably going to come out by the end of 2023. And it's based on a true story. And I definitely suggest taking a look at it because it shows the value of computers in improving the quality of life for people who are deaf. Next one, please. Okay, this is the first computer I programmed. My first computer was the IBM 1401. I wonder if anybody here, probably some of you also programmed the 1401 because you were as old as I am. But it was a fun computer. Remember those big massive printers that used the pin feed printer? The paper was almost 2 feet wide, green and yellow. So
yes,
it was very interesting to see those things come out. And noisy too. The printers were noisy. Okay. Next one. This is when computing got personal and got fun and really the way we do it today. This was the first IBM computer. And by the way, the IBM personal computer was developed here in IBM Boca Raton. Some of you may have gone to the Boca Raton lab and seen it, but that was where the first IBM computer was. Of course, Steve Jobs developed Apple out in California. And although I competed with him, I lived near Steve when I was in California working at IBM. So next one, please. This is Steve and Jet Wozniak in the first version of the Apple. Do any of you imagine some of you use Apple and Macintosh equipment as well as IBM-based equipment. But the computer era has been wonderful for everybody. It's given jobs to thousands of people. And in fact, without the computers, none of us would be here right now, I imagine, because we've all worked in them. Next screen, please. This is a Tandy Radio Shack computer. Radio Shack built popular things that were fairly low cost. I owned one of these computers some years ago. It wasn't very powerful, but it was nice. It was easy to play with, and it did interesting work. You can see it didn't connect to a printer or have any output, but you could do calculations and use it for just basic computing skills. It weighed about 1.5 pounds, so it was very light. Okay. This one I still have one of these today. In fact, no, I don't have it. This was the Hewlett Packard. This was one of the smallest portable computers ever made. It weighed only a few ounces, but it could do spreadsheets. It had Lotus in it. It had all kinds of text processing. You could connect it to an external printer. For a tiny little thing that you could put in your pocket, it was a fairly sophisticated little device. It's about this little bigger than a cell phone today. Okay, next one, please. Now, this is what we all using now. This is the kind of computers we all know and love, with a good size screen, a QWERTY keyboard, and the ability to plug in speakers, the ability to connect to the internet, get into Wi-Fi, the ability to do Zoom meetings like we're doing now. This is what makes computers really interesting, is the fact that you can do all these things with them today. Okay, next screen, please. Oh, this is where I work. This is IBM Santa Teresa in California. They had orange groves and things in the hills behind the laboratory, but it was quite a beautiful place. And when I first went out there, there was still farmland surrounding the laboratory. Now it's all built up with houses and condos and apartments. So this is an older picture of IBM Santa Teresa before it got completely developed all the way around it. It was interesting that IBM had enough money to build things like that in the middle of nowhere. In fact, I think IBM deliberately selected places in the middle of nowhere because the land was cheap and they didn't have to pay a lot of extra taxes for it. But in any case, this was IBM Santa Teresa, where I worked most of my IBM career. Next one, please. Now, one of the things that computers have done is they have just revolutionized manufacturing. This is a computerized automobile assembly line. When I was a boy, automobiles were made by hand. In fact, there were actual assembly lines with real workers on them. Now, hardly anybody has to work by hand when you're building an automobile or an aircraft or anything else. They all go through computerized assembly lines and are constructed that way. So this is a picture of a modern automobile assembly line that's completely computerized. Next one, please. Okay. I've forgotten what that is. Well, that's how they built before. That was a manual assembly line back in the 20s. See all the workers there putting the things together? Now go back to the previous one if you don't mind. This is what it's like today with no people in view, and then go back to the black and white one. Or oh, no, yeah, that was from the 30s and 40s and 20s, back when automobiles were built by hand. Unfortunately, computers put thousands of manufacturing workers out of business because things became so efficient with computers that they didn't need all the manual labor. So one of the problems that computers have introduced socially is that they eat up jobs because they're replacing people in tasks that people used to do manually and are being computerized now. Next one, please. Oh, this is what a modern supercomputer looks like. Oh, this is a stock exchange, I think. But you can see how much information is displayed. Aircraft, when you go into an airport, you see all the flight information. You go to a brokerage office, you see all the stocks and how they're changing. Computers are bringing information to us almost instantly, as fast as it occurs. And without computers, it might be days or weeks before we knew how stocks change. Now we know how stocks change within a couple of minutes from the actual transactions. Okay. Oh, computers are also being used for medical diagnosis. You can see that she's wearing a mask. This must be a post-COVID picture. And you can see that the thermometer, instead of the old mercury thing that we used to use, where you had to put it under your tongue, that can tell her temperature in a couple of seconds from a distance of 6 or 7 inches. So medical practice has been terrifically changed by computers. I had my annual physical exam a couple of weeks ago, and about half of it was being connected to various computers that did different kinds of tests. I only saw a real doctor towards the end when he came in and told me what all the computerized stuff meant for my condition, which fortunately was good. But it used to be when you went to a doctor, they would actually examine you and talk to you and you spend hours with them. Now the computer does all the work and you spend 10 or 15 minutes at the end of the session and he explains to you what all the computer data is. So next screen, please. Oh, another thing that's interesting in the modern world is computers are now able to do 3D printing. This is a house that's built from a 3D. Well, first the design is computerized and you can actually construct the houses itself using 3D printers. Next screen, please.
I'm not sure.
This is the inside of a, this is the inside of a structure that was put together from using 3D printers. I've never seen but one or two buildings built with 3D printers, but they're becoming more and more popular, especially out west in California, where houses are starting to be built with them. Next screen, please. Here's some samples of what a subdivision might look like in 10 or 15 years with the bulk of the houses being produced by 3D printers and just simply plugged in and assembled. And by the way, things like the air conditioning and the heating, they're all going to be computerized too. Actually, some of them are today, but even more so in the future. So in 20 years, you'll be living in a house built by a computer. The house itself will be built by a computer. Your automobile will have been constructed by a computer, and probably it will be self-driving. You won't even have to drive it in 20 years. You can just sit there and tell it where you want to go. So you can get into your self-driving automobile from your computer-built house, go to a doctor's appointment, you'll do computer tests and tell you in a couple of minutes what's right or what's wrong, and you go home. So you spend probably half your time playing around with computers or working on computers or using them because they're changing daily lives as well as the business structure. Okay, next one, please.
Wow.
Oh, they're also helping people that are handicapped who've lost limbs. You can actually have artificial hands and artificial limbs that allow you to maneuver and control things. So this is a sample of what might come up in the future with artificial arms and legs that, although you won't be able to feel them, you can have probably the same degree of versatility that you almost did with your real arm or leg. So it's going to be very good for handicapped people in the future. Next one, please. Okay, computers are also making a big deal in warfare. Almost every aircraft and ship, all of them are computerized. They have automatic threat detection. The ships themselves, boats like this, are built by computers. The steering, the navigation, everything is computerized. The radar, the sonar, all the detection things are done by computers. So modern warfare is basically 80% computers today and only 20% human interaction. Next one, please. This just shows a picture of all the parts that go into a modern automobile sitting there. And it's amazing to me that computers can not only design and build all these parts, but can put them together and make the thing work. Who would think that a computer and devices would be sophisticated enough to do everything pretty much from the drawing board through driving it out to the testing range without any human interaction. Next one, please. Oh, more on modern warfare. This shows drones like they're using right now over in the war between Ukraine and Russia. And the target acquisition is all computerized. The defenses against the drones are all computerized. So modern warfare is basically replacing human actions with weapons that are completely computerized. In fact, the drones don't even have pilots. Somebody sitting in a bunker underground 500 miles away controlling the thing and completely safe while it's going out and killing people without any way of really striking back except with other computer equipment. You can't shoot them down by hand. You need other computers in order to do something with them. Okay, next one, please. This is a modern computerized ship. It was probably designed by computer, partly built by computer, and all the weapon systems are computerized. Okay, next one. Air combat, once again, completely controlled by computers. So if we think ahead, I use a computer maybe 3 or 4 hours a day, and my car has a navigation system that's computerized, but in 20 or 30 years, my car will drive me. I'll probably be using the computer 8 or 9 hours a day. And I can have things like, it can check my temperature while I'm asleep, it can check my blood pressure while I'm asleep. It can, if something goes wrong, like a cardiac problem while I'm asleep, it can automatically call 911 for me without even my waking up. So all kinds of things are coming up with computers that would have been impossible to even dream of, but 10 or 15 years ago. Next one, please. These are some of the modern quantum computers that are coming up, and computer-controlled mechanical devices. I was just thinking the other day, I gave a talk last night to a publishing group. It's possible to use artificial intelligence to convert a novel into a movie without any human interaction. You could actually have the text scanned by a computer and convert it into a novel. And you could even use real movie stars if their pictures were taken before 1978. That's the year that anything after 78, pictures are still copyrighted, but you could have pictures like of Clark Gable or Hedy Lamarr, old actors, and produce a novel. I mean, write a novel and produce a book from it using real movie stars from 50 years ago. And the publishers could sell the book for put it on a CD and sell that for 3 or 4 times more than the book itself. So who knows what computers are going to be doing in the future. Okay. And quantum computing is much faster than regular computing. And since quantum computers, the price is coming down, eventually computers are going to be linked all over the world, and every city, every government is going to be communicating by quantum computers, and almost everything, medicine, automobiles, air traffic, education, everything else will be heavily impacted by computers. And most of us by then will have computer implants like cochlear implants or artificial legs or things of that sort that are partly computerized. So we're going to be partly computerized ourselves, and we're going to be living in a computerized world with more and more use of computers than we've ever seen before. Okay. Yeah, this is one of the fastest upcoming computers. Look at all those wires. It's amazing to me that they still use wires like that. But I guess they still need them in computer design. Okay, next one. I think that's the end of it. I think we've gone through quickly. It went faster than I had expected, but sorry that it went faster than that. So if there are any questions, please feel free to ask them. And I didn't mean to go zipping through this thing, but I hadn't given this before. And this is a new computer, so the whole thing was kind of an experiment for me tonight. So the first time I gave the talk, and the first time this computer's been used for a talk. And actually, Bill had to do the hard work to get it done. So thank you very much for tonight.
Papers. You
Yeah.
must have gotten a faster. You must have gotten a faster computer.
I must have been what?
You must have
didn't hear
gotten a
you.
faster computer.
Oh. Yeah, I have hearing aids, so I have a small computer's devices too, but my hearing aids aren't as good as my wife's cochlear implant. She hears better than I do.
Bill, why don't you stop sharing, and then I'm sure there's some questions.
Oh, that's me. I have to do that.
Yes.
Oh. I'll mention if anybody wants this talk, you're welcome to share it. Bill can send it to anybody who wants it. Or I can send it. Either one of us can send it.
Yeah, we'll have it on video even.
Yeah, you could do that too.
That was absolutely fascinating. I just love that. Way
Well,
cool.
thank you so much. That's very kind of you to say that.
I had my first computer.
Oh, yeah, you've got an abacus.
I have to say that you're talking about slide rules. Back in the Navy in the early 70s, and we were teaching, I was teaching electrical school, Navy electrical school, and we're using slide rules. Early 70s, when the calculator first came about, I had to go out and buy a new calculator. I think I bought it from Sears or Kings Point, and I had to learn calculators, teach my students how to use a calculator because we're getting away from slide rules. But it was interesting back in the 70s, early 70s.
JJ, how much was that calculator?
The calculator, I think I paid about $200 or $300 for it, a Kings Point calculator. But that's before the HPs came out.
Yeah.
I did have a TRS 80, and I was taking a basic class at the local college, and the instructor did not like me because every time he put something on the board, I put it into my TRS 80 and proved that his calculations were wrong. So
I have my computer.
Yeah.
$8, Amazon.
I got a couple of those floating around too. But as you can see, my club started out as an Atari computer group back in 1982. And here my first computer was Atari 800. But Atari also came out with a laptop early in 1986.
Right.
I had the opportunity to work for Atari at CES for 3 years and got to play around with the Atari laptop. And in fact, I bought one. But it was interesting back before quite a few of the companies came out with laptop. Also, you're talking about computer and all these electronics and computers. I just recently purchased a 2023 Jeep Grand Cherokee 3 months ago, and I'm still working my way through the 400-page manual trying to figure out all the electronics in it.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's interesting. It's most of this is going on in our lifetimes.
Yes.
Because
That's
most of the
right.
time we think of history of things coming long before we were ever born, but this is all within our lifetimes. It's amazing.
When I started college, there were no computers at the University of Florida. And I don't think they had any when I graduated in 61. They didn't start till about 65 or 66.
Kathleen's had her hand up for a long time. Kathleen?
Yes, during the presentation, someone said he'd also done the IBM computers when they first were. It was a voice in the dark, but I don't know who it is. So I was wondering who it was.
That was me, Kathleen. That was Bill Crow.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And Bill, I worked for IBM back then too. And I had an IBM Peanut.
You worked at IBM too?
Yep, in Capers, you and I worked together.
Oh, we did.
Yep. So to see you again is wonderful. It's been a long
It's
time.
been a long time. Yeah.
Yeah. You forgot to tell the
Oh,
story.
yeah, Margaret Cannon. I
Yep.
remember. Yeah.
And I remember you telling us the story about the naval officer who wanted to know how much the punch cards weighed. The
Yes.
computer code. Yeah. And because it was a submarine and you had to be so careful of the weight. So you couldn't put those cards in that submarine and not have a problem. So you tried to convince him it was the holes. So you brought a whole bunch of holes over for him, but that's what it is. And dumped
Yeah,
it
the
on.
holes don't have any weight. I remember carrying those trays of punch cards.
Yep,
That
yep.
actually weighed 20 or 30 pounds. They were big,
Yep.
those punch
A
cards.
sort 90s, a sort 90s, it's 7074s. Yep. Yep. Absolutely. Yep.
Thank you, Margaret. How about Judy Taylor? Judy?
Caspers, I just wanted to say I'm from Southern California, where our atmospheric river has arrived, and had the opportunity to tour Google's home office, as well as YouTube in Playa Vista and Google's small office down in Venice. They were absolutely fascinating tours to see behind the scenes on what Google does.
Great.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Carl Kalenda. Carl.
Well, I have my Pickett slide rule.
Here's Logo.
Here's the case for it, and I
Yeah.
used that till I graduated when I was 29 in 1972. I'm 83 now.
Yeah.
So computers, when I graduated in 72, I had to take one class in Fortran programming, And of course, I was in Michigan and the computer was in Ohio. And the connection we had was, remote. I don't know what they called it then, but, it was a University of, I think, Toledo. And any rate, and I also had, you talked about the handhelds. I had the first HP 35. That was $300 in 75 or something like that. And then they came out, that had one memory. Then they came out with HP 45, which was $400, and that had 10 memories.
Yeah. Well, the 1401 I programmed had 8K of memory. And then we went beyond that. And now my cell phone has more than that.
I think I still have my ticket slide rule somewhere around, but I remember I got mine when I was taking a course with Cleveland Institute of Electronics.
Yeah.
Yep.
Bill Kelleher's got his hand
Yeah,
up.
I started out working with Honeywell in their computer business, and they still had the original computer in the back room that was a joint project in the 1950s with Raytheon and Honeywell that was all vacuum tubes. And it was, each circuit was, had a vacuum tube on it and a whole bunch of other wiring. So it was built a whole room. And I bought I was working in the quality control department, and Frieden came out with an electronic calculator in the mid 1960s. And because I was doing statistical stuff, I needed one with a square root key. And I could have bought the Frieden calculator electronic version for $600. But because I wanted the square root key, it was $1,200 for a calculator.
Yeah, we had to learn sine, cosine, tangent. A little bit of trick.
Yeah.
Capers, tell me about Tesla and Elon Musk, and why is he having problems?
Are you talking about why Elon Musk is having problems with Tesla? I don't know the answer to that.
Well, I know he's got wet battery problems, but
battery problems.
Beyond
I thought you meant the
battery
personnel problems he's having. I don't know about the battery, why they're having battery problems. In the
recent
battery
storms.
itself, or is it the fact that something's draining the battery faster than it should? Some kind of a leak from the battery to some other system.
Well, they say it was wet batteries from the storms that they recently had. But Tesla's had a lot of problems, and I think of Tesla as being the ultimate computer car.
So far, yeah, but we'll see what happens with it.
Right.
Now that Musk got it.
But by the way, I still have the receipt from my first clone IBM laptop from 1985. It was $3,700. It came with a dot matrix printer. I think it either had a 5 or 10 megabyte hard drive. I know what had a 1 megahertz processor.
Yeah.
And one of the big things to do in those days was to speed up the processor, get a 1 1/4 or 1.5 megabyte.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Judy.
The Dayton Microcomputer Association, obviously in Ohio, has a huge museum of everything you guys are talking about. They just got something from Wright Pat that they have been trying to get for years. And it was stored in people's garages. And if anybody wanted to see it, they would put a mini tour together, and they would go park it someplace, and people will come in and see all their ancient stuff. And they're working on getting the use of a building where they can set all the stuff from way back in the day that Casper's been talking about. And it's just fascinating to hear them talk about what they have, how it was used, and where they got it donated from.
Judy, when you say way back in the day, what do you mean?
Well, it's not Ada. Well, they could have things back as Ada Lovelace time. That they go places and donate all this stuff, and they've got Wright Patterson Air Force Base that had a whole bunch of old stuff.
Yeah,
and it's intriguing.
Go ahead,
Judy.
Huey.
Yeah, some of you are IBM people and worked in the industry. I was 1978, I walked into an Olson Electronics store and watched a 9-year-old kid play with it was a Commodore PET, and things happened on the screen. I said, if he can, I can, and I bought it. And that was my first computer. I never took classes until much, much later. And I still haven't taken a lot of classes. Most of my learning has either been on my own or through user groups. So I'm more of a hobbyist than a lot of you that came out of the industry. And I can remember my first one was a Commodore 64, a Commodore PET. Then I had a TRS-80. And then I had an Osborne, which was I
remember the Osborne
with a 5-inch screen.
Didn't it weigh about 25 pounds? Wasn't it a big bulky suitcase thing?
Yeah, it sure was. It was about the size of a sewing machine.
Yeah.
And it had a handle, and when you took the top off, that's was the keyboard.
Yeah.
And then also when I was with APCUG at one of the Comdex meetings, the handheld computer called Pocket, POQUET. And they were selling them, and I bought one of those, and I had it for years. And like the HP, it would run a spreadsheet and a word processor and so on. And it was just a couple ounces, and it went in the palm of your hand. And I used that for years.
Huey, I'm surprised somebody mentioned Olson Electronics. I haven't heard that word in a long, long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I built my first stereo from them using components.
Yeah, Olson Electronics was on one side of the street, and Apple had a store. They were selling Apple IIs across the street, and I was going back and forth trying to figure out what I wanted to buy, and I ended up with the Commodore PET instead of the Apple.
Yeah.
And I would have been an Apple person all these years.
But my first one actually was a Timex Sinclair.
Oh, I had a Sinclair. I remember I had a Sinclair once.
Yep.
That was an interesting little machine.
But that, and I had that. I think I had that about 3 months, and I bought the Atari.
Yeah.
George
there is
Gladman has his hand up. George?
There's a phase that, because as Huey pointed out, this was a view largely from an industry point of view. There was a hobbyist point of view that I think really started with Don Lancaster's TV typewriter cookbook, progressed into the very first PC it was called Electronics. The Electronics magazine published a 8-bit microcomputer plan you could build yourself. When that turned into the Altair 8080, which eventually had CPM. I mean, there's a whole thread here of stuff that started, some of it in Palo Alto, at the People's Computer Company. I don't know if any of you followed that thread, which was, I mean, the People's Computer Company was really just time sharing off a mainframe, but they were doing, you know, basic programming and stuff like that with kids and stuff like that. Anybody else come through that amateur stuff? I mean, the CPM world went on for, gosh, I don't know, 2 or 3, well, 5 years, I would say, before IBM brought out the PC, and, you know, even before Timex Sinclair.
Yeah,
We
the
were
Osborne
doing
was
Timex.
the Osborne was a CPM, and there was trying to think of the other brand that came out shortly after
A
Osborne.
Compact was the same size as the Osborne Compact.
Yeah.
If you ever look at the TV show called The IT Crowd, you'll see in the background an Altair 8080.
Yeah, I saw that show.
Which, well, you got
We were doing the
geeky to
same.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
We were doing the same thing with Atari. Atari was a front end for ATR 8000, which was running CPM. We were playing around with the big 8-inch floppies and the whole 9 yards.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
thing I like about the Atari, we were buying Ataris out of the store, and before we got to the car, we had those screws out of it because we were hot rodding them, making them do things that Atari said they wouldn't do.
Yeah.
We were burning our own EPROMs.
Yeah, and you know what's kind of funny is that for myself, I started off in that hobbyist build. I mean, I was building my own. We had to solder our own computers, personal computers together. That's what you you got a kit and you soldered it together. And
I
now I'm
remember
back.
that, yeah.
Now I'm back soldering again on the Raspberry Pis and all those little microcontrollers.
Yeah.
So I worked in the industry, not in IBM industry, but in the telecommunications industry, and I'm finding a lot of interest in the physical control that people can have with microcontrollers. Measuring temperatures around the house and controlling different things. So I don't think people have really given up on the intrigue of the controlled microcontroller and microprocessor.
Steve Parker, you have a question. Steve.
Well, yeah, it's as much of a comment as anything else. I just wondered if anybody still remembers that Run magazine. It was
Yep. Used to
I know it was
type in our
Commodore
programs, right?
That's right. Yeah, it used to take you like a week to type in the whole thing. And all that happened was a dot moved across the screen. And you're going, what? I spent a week doing that.
And you made a mistake, it didn't work, then you had to go proofread. Oh yeah, it was fun.
Yeah.
Was it machine language and decoding or debugging? Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, worse than
I
that.
coded machine language. I coded machine language and then assembly.
Yeah, worse than that. And in the Radio Shack days when I had my TRS-80, you could get magazines, and it was all run by BASIC, and you get magazines that have little games or some kind of a routine, and you type it in and it wouldn't work. Well, that's how I learned about programming. Is I went in and troubleshoot the program, and they'd have a semicolon where it should have been a colon, or the other way around, or it should have been a slash in one way and it was a slash the other way. And it was it was fun trying to figure all those things out and then make it run so it would do something very simple, but at least that's how I learned how to program in BASIC.
Well, I think almost all of those people are still alive. That like the Byte magazine era. I don't know if you remember that.
Yep.
And I think most of those people are still alive. I mean, some of them are not. They got into it late in their, they got into it in their 30s or 40s. But the 20-year-olds, they're still kicking around here.
You betcha they are. Carl, you're up next. Carl.
Yeah, I did some digging while you guys were looking. I had an HP 65. It was a calculator, programmable calculator, and it had these strips of programs. And it was really a computer. They called it a calculator, I think. And you ran these programs. This one's on stress analysis. You got them for every, engineering discipline you wanted. They were optional. And there was actually had a motor pulled the strips through and read the program, because you didn't have the memory like you have today. This was probably in the late 70s. And I still have it. And I couldn't find it while I was looking. But one of the problems is that motor won't pull these computer, I guess they're magnetic strip cards anymore.
You have to go back to paper tape. That's where BASIC came on.
Well, these are computer analysis. This is, this is for really, it would be graduate level kind of.
They used to have programs you could put in for financial analysis and stuff like that.
Yeah, and everything. EE was, I have a whole stack of them for every engineering discipline. There was a deal if you bought them. I was a big aficionado of Hewlett Packard. I have Hewlett Packard. I'm a ham operator, Spectrum analyzers. I had their first digital probe voltmeter. And I still have that. And I was always admired. When the first calculator came out, this HP 35 that he talked about, there was a write-up in the IEEE magazine, Spectrum. And it told a whole story about how the effort that went in to make that, reverse Polish method calculator work, and how much effort and research they did in man-machine interface. This was in the mid-70s, and it was kind of like Pride going to the moon. TI came out with a calculator prior to that, but what HP did, it was like the marvel of its day.
Thank you, Carol. How about Bob? Go Gus teacher. Yeah, I got it there, Bob.
Yeah, way back when I had a VIC 20 that I had gotten. It was a little over $300, and I took that into work. Now, at work, we had a computer upstairs on the second floor, and it was the entire second floor. And I put together a payroll package on the Commodore VIC 20 that outdid the entire upper floor. Okay. I also wrote a word processing package in BASIC called Tiny Word, and then I used a compiler because in BASIC it was slower than molasses. But once you compiled it and you had a compiler, then it was simple. Just make sure all of the bugs were out before you compiled it, or you'd start from scratch.
Yeah.
I'm inspired. I'm ready to go.
Then he just-
Is that a 5-inch or a 8-inch?
It's 5.
Okay. I think
I
I
got
still,
an 8. I got an 8-inch around here. Just I saved it over the years.
yeah, like I said, when back in the Atari days, we were running ATR 8000, which was CPM, and we had a few of us that had 8-inch floppies.
Yeah. Does anybody have an
Movie
8-inch
board games?
drive?
No. They were too big to lug around.
Yeah.
They went out with the garbage. You know, some of those things that we tossed out would have been worth a lot of money now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My
Yeah, but they were
my
too big to
Altair.
Well, I've got a question for Judy. You're in California area, HP. Are you near Cupertino? Anyways, I wonder if like some of these HP devices I have, if they'd be interested in, do they have a museum or, you know?
You're
You're
muted.
muted,
Judy.
Judy.
Yeah.
There's a museum in San Jose. I know that. It's an Intel museum, but you know, HP's up there too, and they all kind of talk to each other. So you might give it a try, and you might get in touch with Peter Hess in Dayton and see if they'd be interested in anything that you have. That's how they get their stuff.
Yeah, I was thinking of the HP 65. I've got all the software for every discipline, and it's all on those memory sticks or cards. And the problem with all of that stuff was trying to learn how to use it on the computer. I mean, you had the textbooks, but then you had to know how to manipulate and what keys and everything. That was a huge learning curve in those days.
Keys? You didn't have those little switches that you had to enter each address and each data?
No, I'm newer than that. Mine was 1975.
So this has been fascinating.
Yes, it has.
Do we have any more questions for Capers?
Just one more comment. When I was early on, my first job, I was working out in a system test where they were starting up computers. This was the H200 that was I think the successor to the 1401 by Honeywell. And to start it up, I had to punch in some octal. So there was little light buttons, you push the button and you'd have to put in the octal code until it got up to the point where you could read from the paper tape reader.
Absolutely.
I put this in the chat, but the $3,700 that you paid is equivalent to $10,237 today. So pretty expensive.
That's right. That's right.
Well, Bob was talking about the VIC 20. I had one that really step up was the VIC 6, the Commodore 64. But the VIC 20 had a tape drive, if you remember, Bob.
You're muted.
When you had programs on there, they're all sequential. So you had to go through the tape until you got to where the program started. That was fun.
I have a little story to tell everybody. One of my friends worked on an operating system for one of IBM's computers. That particular computer resembled something out of Star Trek. It had all kinds of switches and lights on the front of the panel. And actually, if you were really smart, you could figure out how to move the switches to actually change the programming. So that's a little background. we had a client who got the machine and it wasn't working. And so they called upon this friend of mine to fly out of Burlington, Vermont and go to somewhere in the middle of the country to figure out what was wrong, because he was one of the main programmers of it. So he took the entire listing of the program onto the plane with him. And if any of you have seen some of those listings, it was about, I'd say, 6 inches high, and it's about 14 by 11 is what the printer paper is. And so he started studying what they had described to him as the problem, and he found the error, and it was one particular instruction in his program. So he gets to the company and he walks up to the computer with all the lights blinking, and he said, "Could you run the program?" And he sits there watching the lights, and the lights are twinkling and blinking and twinkling and blinking. He says, "Stop." And they push the stop button. He says, "Can you run that again?" And so the lights are twinkling and blinking and twinkling and blinking. And he says, "Stop." And he goes to the panel in the front and he flicks the switches, right? And he changes that one instruction he found. And he says, "Now try it." And it all worked. And he got up and left and got back on the plane. So they thought he was some kind of god.
I guess.
All right.
I guess. We still have some questions.
we-
Leah, do you want to have
It's not a
final
question, but somebody just mentioned a Commodore 64, and that's what we started for. We didn't have to purchase it. We just have to go look at a house. We were living in Seville, Florida at the time, and it had no screen. You just had the keyboard, and you had to program certain things in it. When some things you could type into it, but you had to connect it to a TV monitor just the portable TV monitor that you weren't using for anything else. But you could write programs. I did church bulletins with it, and we used that for probably 3 or 4 years for a while before we got something else after we moved to Lakeland.
It's amazing.
And it was just a keyboard. Everything was in the keyboard.
Wow. Judy Talor.
Did anybody use Mass 11? A word processing program that was attached to the huge computer mainframe in the basement of Bendix Aerospace in the San Fernando Valley. I think I'm the only one in the world. It's amazing. It is still the best word processing program and all the suite that went with it. It is superior to WordPerfect. I didn't think I'd ever say that. And Microsoft, the whole 9 yards. And I can't find anybody other than me, but I am 1,000 years old, that has ever used it. And
Judy,
you
you
guys,
never-
all the Commodores and the Ataris, I grew up on clones until I got my Toshiba laptops. So
Judy-
I was a clone person from the beginning.
Judy, you never tried my tiny word.
I thought we just had to use edit.
Please ask Steve Parker what he has to say. Set his hand up.
Steve,
If
you
you
have your hand
remember, if you remember the Sinclair, which was designed by Sir Clive Sinclair, he was a British inventor. He also invented the digital watch.
Yes.
And he invented an electric car, which wasn't quite so successful because it was basically like a 3-wheel, about the size of the compartment for a side car for a motorcycle. It was about that size.
Was that the one where the steering wheel came out to meet you?
Yeah, something like that.
I remember one of our neighbors had one around the corner. Yes.
Yeah. So Huey, next time Ron starts talking about his Fitbit and all the other watch stuff, you can ask him who invented it.
He also did a little calculator that was really cheap with tiny digit letters.
Well, I had the Sinclair ZX80 in the 81, which had 1K of memory on it. And I doubled it to 2K of RAM on the thing.
The trouble with the Sinclair Basic was that as you typed in everything you typed, it had to go. The longer the program got, the slower. I know, not talking about running, but just editing. The longer the program got in length, as you typed it in, the slower and slower it would run because it was doing all this interpolation of
It wasn't bad though for something about the size of a cell phone. Because it made keyboard and everything.
yeah.
And then there's the Commodore 64. I started off with that and had I got the Commodore 128, and then I got a RAM doubler on that. So I actually had a Commodore 256.
I'm so impressed with all of you. Let me ask Capers something. Capers, you didn't know that you would provide us with so many questions, right? And so many conversations, did you?
Yeah, it's been fun to listen to them. They bring back a lot of memories for all of us from back when we first started years ago.
That's right. That's great. Well, computers have been around for a while, and I think they're here to stay. And I want to thank you so much for your presentation tonight. We truly have appreciated it.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Nice meeting all of you.
Yeah, and now for the end of the meeting, because it is getting to that time.
Philip was trying to say something.
I'm sorry?
Philip was trying to say something.
Did I miss?
Yes, I was. I wanted to ask Capers, though, why individuals like Turing and with the work that went on at Bletchley Hall in terms of using computing to break almost unbreakable codes, and von Neumann's work at Princeton, Grace Hopper's work. I know Grace Hopper. I met her. Pardon?
I met Grace Hopper.
Yes. So did I. That's why I think she should have been included in your talk here in terms of, in the history of computing.
I should have put in stuff on code and Turing and all that, but I didn't.
Yeah, but the other key omission, I believe, was the development of the ARPANET, which is allowing us to do what we're doing tonight.
Right.
And
I should have put that in too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you also didn't mention Moore's Law, which I don't know if it's still in force or not, but certainly it's been a key feature of computing. And so it should have been included as well.
Well, you're right. But on the other hand, this is supposed to be a short talk. And everything, it would
It's supposed to include the key features, key elements that made computing what it is today, though, I thought. So that's what I was looking for.
Well, I covered a lot of prehistory stuff like University of Nalanda that happened years ago. And that took up time.
We truly did appreciate what you included, Capers. Thank you so much. And because we need to get moving on, we thank you all. We certainly thank everybody Bill Crow for getting this together and for putting it on, and for Huey for getting this started. And I hope you all have a wonderful New Year's. We will see you next month.
Thanks, everybody.
And good night.
Yes.
Good night.